Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, your home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. In today's video, we're going to be profiling a brand new company to the channel. The name is Potash Corp, and this is an organization set out with a mission of ensuring food security in the country of Brazil. A really interesting business model. We're going to talk about all of that and more in today's video. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below if you've heard of this company before, if you're currently holding shares, and your outlook on the potash market itself entering 2025. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we're going to be profiling Potash Corp. Trades on the NYSE American Exchange under the ticker GRO. Now this is as of Friday, January 17th, about midday. Currently trading at $7 even, down 15 cents or about 2.1% on the day. This is a company that's focused on global food security, as we're going to talk about and learn in today's presentation. The estimated demand for food or global agriculture is expected to double over the next 2 decades. When you couple that with the fact much of the world's farmland has been overcultivated and lacks the nutrients required for sustainable agriculture, you can see there's really a demand for companies like Potash Corp that are focused on finding a solution to this problem. Now, if we jump over to the corporate website, and because this is the first time we're covering Potash on the channel, a quick introduction to the company itself. This is a fertilizer company constructing a new potash project in the Amazon region on previously deforested land. Today, Brazil is the second largest consumer of potash in the world, but more than 95% of this is currently imported. Our company intends to reduce the dependence on being a key potash supplier to the agriculture sector in Brazil. We believe in sustainable development of the region through partnerships with the indigenous people, community, public agents, and non-governmental organizations. So with the world itself really standing on the brink of a food crisis, knowing that Brazil is one of the top areas of cultivation globally, and the fact that they currently have to import much of the potash required for the fertilization of this land, you can quickly see the opportunity that Potash is looking to take advantage of. Not to mention, as we've seen with many industries in recent years, sanctions between countries, specifically the US sanctioning Belarus in 2021, followed by the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, really gave the world great visibility into how fragile this supply chain itself is, with potash itself being one of the key 3 ingredients that goes into fertilizer, often being overlooked. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, potash is a potassium-rich mineral. It's crucial for enhancing crop growth by improving resilience against drought, temperature swings, and pestilence, ultimately increasing crop yields. So a very versatile ingredient that goes into fertilizer as one of those key 3 components. Now, before we get into the details of this organization, they have a great video available on their corporate YouTube account that gives a good summary of the project and the location itself.
Focused on food security for Brazil and the world, Potassio do Brasil presents the Potash Potash Project, which will produce potassium chloride fertilizer essential to meet the fertilizer requirements of Brazilian agribusiness to produce food for the world. The Potash Potash Project is being developed in the Potash County, traditionally known as an agricultural producing region, and located about 120 kilometers from Manaus in the Amazonas region of Brazil. Potassio do Brasil developed its mineral exploration campaign exclusively in pasture areas in this region for the mineral.
And as we'll talk about throughout today's presentation, this unique Potash Potash project really is what differentiates Potash from others in this space. Now, in order to fully understand this story and investment thesis, we really need to understand the global food market and the role that Brazil plays in that market. Based on the abundant land, water, and the warm year-round climate in Brazil, this country is really looked at to boost global food security. They're currently the largest net exporter of agricultural products in the world, and over 25% of the Brazilian GDP is generated in the agricultural sector. So in terms of last year's overall volume, about $167 billion US worth of agricultural exports just in 2023. Now, as a result, in order to meet those food demands, they obviously need to rely on fertilizer. As we just learned, potash is a core component of fertilizer, and as a result, Brazil is now the world's largest importer of potash. So although 22% of the global demand for potash comes from Brazil, they're 98% reliant on imported supply for this potash. Now, this is really the opportunity that Brazil Potash has set out to solve. By becoming a low-cost producer domestically within Brazil, they're able to really cut down on a lot of costs associated with importing, transporting, and the actual site costs themselves. And as you can see when comparing to other countries or other companies in this space, Brazil Potash is positioned to be a real price leader in the sector. Now, the fourth pillar here is really some of these upcoming catalysts. This is something we're going to spend time on today as well, talking about the additional offtake agreements, some of the completed engineering, construction financing, and the actual start or kickoff of the Autazes Potash project itself in Brazil. And you'll see an additional note talking about some of those recent geopolitical events that I mentioned in the intro. As a result, you guys, this has had a big impact on the price of potash, which has actually quadrupled from $300 to nearly $1,200 per ton from the mid-2021s into 2022. So as you can imagine, companies or countries that are heavily reliant on importing potash obviously feel that price increase, with Brazil actually producing approximately 1 in every 10 plates of food that are consumed globally. Now, the project itself includes an estimated 2.4 million tons per year anticipated potash production, a 23-year estimated reserve project life, and that 550,000 ton per year offtake agreement that we looked at earlier with McNallie. Now, speaking of offtake, and earlier in the presentation, I mentioned there were some big press releases this week from Brazil Potash. You can see January 16th, they've now signed another Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, with Questrade Agriculture for up to 1 million tons of potash offtake per year. So very similar to what we saw in the investor presentation. This is really a great step in ensuring that Brazil Potash has the commitment from these customers or consumers for the potash that they're creating. And this is yet another example or further validation of Brazil Potash's position as an emerging domestic supplier for Brazilian agriculture. Now, Questrade AG is a company that was founded in Switzerland in 1977, and they're now a leading fertilizer company catering to the needs of suppliers, distributors, and retailers in over 115 countries, spanning all different fertilizer products and categories. Now, you can see, combined with their existing offtake agreement with McNallie, which we just covered, we now have secured the potential commitment for approximately 1.5 million tons of their planned 2.4 million tons of annual potash production. So this is obviously a huge step in the right direction and really a continuation of what we just talked about in relation to McNallie. So again, a big announcement that just came out on the 16th of January. Now, we just saw their permits for construction, simplified logistics and development, and overall, that's what gives us the lowest anticipated all-in delivered cost to farmers in Brazil compared to any other major producer. Now, in terms of the financials here, they have an estimated $1 billion of EBITDA, 75% EBITDA margins over the life of the project, and pre-operating capex in the neighborhood of about $2.5 billion. As we saw in the intro video, Brazil Potash has already invested over $242 million US throughout the last 14 years in their drilling, engineering, and various studies on this piece of land, with additional information about both the McNallie offtake agreement and that Franco-Nevada royalty option agreement we mentioned in the intro. So the economics here are fairly clear. The project is located near the Amazon River system. This offers a major reduction in shipping costs as they can actually use boats to carry or offtake this potash. And this is really where you see that major cost difference compared to some of those international importers, with the total estimated transit time from the Autazes project to Brazilian potash consumers or customers expected to be only 2.5 days, while currently international shipments from Canada and Russia take an average of 107 days to arrive in Brazil. And worth noting that Brazil Potash has already secured a 15-year shipping agreement with Hermassa, which includes exclusive river barge transport rights, which is how they can ensure the supply of the Brazil Potash annual production to those major farming regions. And also worth noting that Brazil Potash Corp has appointed Mayo Schmidt as their executive chairman of the board. This came out on December 17th. This is a major announcement for the company as he brings over 30 years agricultural business experience and helped build Nutrien into the world's largest potash producer with an approximate $23 billion market cap, as well as being the previous president and CEO of Viterra and serving on Agrium's board of directors. So really a great addition to the existing management team and a big asset to Brazil Potash Corp moving forward. Now, in addition to the impressive deposit itself, location, proximity to the end user, the management team, board of directors, the other big catalyst for Brazil Potash Corp that we mentioned a little bit earlier was that the main permits and licenses to commence operations have now been obtained. You can see their exploration permit, along with their environmental exploration license, has been obtained by the Brazilian Amazonas Environmental Protection Institute. Their preliminary environmental license has also been obtained, along with their construction licenses, which includes 21 specific licenses that are expected to be required for the construction of the Atazes project itself that we saw earlier in that video. Now, following that, they'll need their operational license and their mining concession, which are expected to be down the line, which really positions Brazil Potash in an ideal position to take advantage of that global population increase and food demand imbalance that we talked about in the intro. So with potash cementing itself as an irreplaceable part of the agricultural ecosystem, market analysts predict that the sector itself will grow from about $57.8 billion in 2022 up to $93.5 billion by 2032, representing a staggering 62% increase. Now, the other interesting article that came out on the 13th, talking about Brazil Potash subsidiary Potassio do Brasil signing their preliminary agreement with the Mura indigenous people for the Atazes Potash project. And this is really going to establish their preliminary social and economic framework for this partnership with indigenous communities in the area. So this includes implementation of their sustainable development program, investment in social and cultural development initiatives for various different indigenous villages represented by CIM, and a commitment to socio-economic and environmental programs aligned with their current environmental licensing and legal requirements. And this is something we've actually talked about in a lot of our Bitcoin mining videos as well. These local partnerships really enabling a win-win situation for the local indigenous people, and in this case, Brazil Potash. So for those reasons, you guys, this is definitely one to keep a close eye on, specifically if you're looking for exposure to the agricultural or fertilizer sectors in your portfolio. Roth has recently come out with a $17 price target on this stock, citing Brazil Potash as a significant piece of Brazil's agricultural future and covering many of the same benefits in relation to their Atazes project that we talked about in today's video. So when you think about global food security, the fact that Brazil is one of the largest exporters of food, currently ranking first in a number of daily global consumables, including orange juice, coffee, soybeans, sugar, meat, poultry, and second globally in cotton, it's no wonder why there's such strong demand for this domestic in-market potash production. They've already received all of their project permits to begin construction, multiple development catalysts are on the horizon, and they've already secured those major offtake and transportation agreements, which are critical to success in this industry and represent some partnerships with the biggest names in the space. So as they move forward with the construction at their Atazes project, Brazil Potash could establish itself as a significant player in not only Brazil, but also the global fertilizer field, which is really why this may be a great time to start your research or due diligence on this company. Now, with that being said, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on Brazil Potash Corp in the comments section below, specifically if you're already holding shares of this company. If you're still watching the video at this point, hopefully you found some value, so make sure you hit the like button and feel free to subscribe to the channel. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.